I am very curious. It's beautiful. Hi.
Que les rues se vident, je reste ici. J'ai cherché ton amour, ton tout.
So many aspects of the song. There are so many strong performances this year. Kia ora and welcome. My name's Zoe Stevie and I'm your vocal coach for today because we're going to take a look at Monroe with, I was trying to pronounce this before, Regarde. I hope I said that right. I'm so sorry. I failed French twice at university. I will admit that. We're going to take a look at what is she up to with her vocal technique, how is she making these beautiful sounds, and how you can create them. Let's just get straight to the video. Oh, before we get to Monroe, if you want to see more Eurovision vocal analyses, then hit the subscribe button. Honestly, it really does help me, and I would love to see you around here more often.
Quand tout s'illumine dans tout Paris, que les rues se vident, je reste ici. J'ai cherché ton amour, ton tout, et au beau je chante tous les jours.
I am very curious. Oh, we're going to look at that again.
Quand tout s'illumine dans tout Paris, que les rues se vident, je reste ici. J'ai cherché ton amour, ton tout, et au beau je chante.
Fantastic. So we've got this at the beginning. Got quite a lot of thyroid tilt going on there. Let's just watch that again.
Quand tout s'illumine.
I mean, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the French, right? Got that little bit of vibrato going on there, even with it closed. Now, vibrato is brought on by the thyroid tilt, which is the bit where the vocal folds live. Here, everyone's got one's the Adam's apple. When it tilts forward, that's what elongates the vocal folds and brings on the vibrato, or can bring on the vibrato.
Dans tout Paris, que les rues se vident.
Even with that breath coming in there with lots of thyroid tilt, we're getting that vibrato.
Je reste ici. J'ai cherché ton amour, ton tout.
Even with that breath coming in, but she's setting up the sound. This is what she's going into her head voice, and we need that level of thyroid tilt right at the beginning. I mean, look, honestly, a professional singer would be able to make that transition for themselves, but it just kind of helps, especially in like a room with that much, like, what do you call it? The stage smoke stuff. That's hard to sing through.
J'ai cherché ton amour, ton tout, et au beau je chante tous les jours.
That's beautiful. So, where she did that, you saw that tongue go up there. So that's a way that we can actually make it's called an SOVT, where we basically like chuck something in front of the opening of the mouth. So whenever we make this mouth opening smaller, it actually creates back pressure that helps us to close the vocal folds and helps us to get onto the note. So you can pitch the la. So she's on there. Yeah, there's just kind of a bit of a trick there. I like that. Did you say, because she got a woo? She didn't do a woo. Yeah, she hit that whatever the melody is. So by doing that, you're also, by creating that closed mouth consonant on an L, which it usually wouldn't be. So I'm talking about like a B or a P is where the mouth would be closed before the onset. When we pitch that L by doing a la, it's going to help us to hit the pitch as well. I've got the mouth go, so that rounded lip position there. Now, it's not a must, but what it does do is it helps us to create that awe feeling within the mouth, but also with the resonance inside. It also signals more of a classical tone. One of the misnomers of classical singing is we keep on talking about space, It's not. It's about changing the vowels so it sounds more classical to give the impression of space. What we're trying to do is increase resonance, which gives us the feeling of space. Don't actually have a shitload of space within the mouth, even if we do a ooh, because the tongue is actually still quite high at the back of the mouth. Okay. So we've got like a little bit of a classical crossover sort of thing. Let's go. Let's just watch that again. Got quite a strong vibrato there. So when we're, I'm not making fun of it. I'm just kind of playing with sounds within my own throat. Yeah. So we've got thicker vocal fold quality there, but we've got shit loads of thyroid tilt, right? Not only have we got like that big vibrato at the end, but we've also got the kind of sounds like a cry, like a call out. And that changes from the head voice down to I love that actually, because that's why I'm going to use this as an example in my workshops inside the Vocal Academy, because I like to use really practical examples and to show what I'm meaning in terms of like the context of a song with other singers and not just me kind of like parroting away. And that's a really great example. Head voice, which is a really typical thing that classical singers often are not taught to do, to take the vocal folds back down into the thicker vocal fold quality, back into the chest voice, and also to take a little bit of that thyroid tilt out. Otherwise, when we keep the thyroid tilt, when we keep the vocal folds thin, it starts to sound like a little bit too classical going down there. Again, subjective choice, yeah? Releasing to that thyroid tilt. So we've got probably vertical and then tilting as she's going through that phrase there. Okay, never say to a singer like what they should or should not do. I always begin lessons by saying, what would you like to do? What do you not like? Could we try something? So if a singer was to say like, hey, on this section, I feel like my throat is getting a little bit tired, we would work on that section of the song. So when we've got through and she's going like really landing on those notes, making them quite a lot louder and then shaking at the end, I'm noticing that there is a shake going on into that jaw there. So with that level of vibrato, that is totally up to the singer themselves. There are a bunch of different ways that we can create vibrato, and that one is what we would call a little bit more of a wobble. We're actually shaking the larynx to create that sound, but it is regular and it is relatively fast. So again, that's totally up to the singer. I would just start to introduce all these different types of vibrato so they can make that decision for themselves within their own, singing journey.
Je peux t'emmener là où c'est fort, fort de s'aimer. Allez viens, tu n'es pas fou. Dans ma poitrine, tu rythmes mon pouls. Allez viens, sous la pluie battante, j'ai vécu aujourd'hui.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused by this. There's just so much going on. So. Okay, so we're okay, so she's up on that top C6. Now we did see quite a lot of opening of the mouth there. It's not necessary in order to go further up in the range. I know I see a lot of people online talking about like, going higher, open your mouth more. You don't need to actually. If you just try this yourself, put your fingers in your larynx and open your mouth really wide, you're actually going to push the larynx down, which is really not what you want when you're going that high in the range. Again, she's making the decision for herself and she would have worked on it with her own coach. Maybe this is also just a stylistic decision that she's making in this. Okay, so this can often happen with singers creating more of a classical sound. It's sort of, I mean, look, again, no disrespect to Monroe. I think this is this song has so many different qualities in it. I'm sort of like trying to get my head around these things. When we've got this sort of like little bit of a coloratura section here, I'm just hearing that there's quite a lot of volume being like put into the sound. So we've got, and what often happens is that singers try and create the sound by going, and that sounds fucking awful. But anyway, like in my voice, it sounds awful. I'm saying I'm unimpressed with my sound. So when we're trying to make that sound, then we often add like an over-darkening and a lot of like almost tension at the back of the tongue. And that over-darkening can also cause the voice to be quite sluggish and quite slow, because if we're pushing the larynx down, it's not going to be able to raise for those other pitches. I've kind of feel it's a little bit of breath pushing going on here. I know this isn't like the whole song. I don't want to spend too much. Again, that's not the point, right? She's not pretending like she's any type of opera singer, okay? So, like, this is an expression in the song, and that's absolutely fine. I really love to get singers to work actually on their classical voice sounds, because it helps us to pull the muscles in completely the opposite direction. And actually singing classical music's really hard work in terms of the breath support, the breath control, as well as keeping those vocal folds thin and not allowing them to thicken, which is what she's, at the end that she's doing now. The thing is, if we over darken the sound, the sound darkens as we get older with time, and like it's a physiological thing that happens. We don't want to like fake pull the sound down into this deeper. I think she would have gained more speed had she not have lowered the larynx quite as much in order to darken that sound.
Allez viens, tu n'es pas fou. Dans ma poitrine, tu rythmes mon pouls. Allez viens, sous la pluie battante, j'ai dit aux gens, j'ai des présents, j'ai dit aux femmes, aux hommes, aux enfants, j'ai dit au monde, chaque chanson,
and that's what I mean. That's her classical sound. This is what I mean. This is like her. It's a beautiful higher classical sound in her head voice. Wonderful. Use that sound for the coloratura section. You can make that sound louder as well. But you go. You don't have to shove the larynx down. It's about adding twang and about adding anchoring, not about shoving the larynx. It gives a fake sense of volume, because when we shove the larynx down, obviously the sound then twirls around in our own heads and it makes it seem louder to us, but it's actually a lot quieter out to our audience. We have to try a lot harder. So this is beautiful working and from this like chest voice up into this head voice register.
Tu n'es pas fou, dans ma poitrine, tu rythmes mon pouls. Allez viens, sous la pluie battante, j'ai dit aux gens, j'ai des présents, j'ai dit aux femmes, aux hommes, aux enfants, j'ai dit au monde, chaque chanson, j'ai cherché ton amour, ton tout, et les moments, je chante tous les jours.
That's her classical sound. That's beautiful. That is her classical sound. I mean, it's all beautiful, yeah, but like that is really her classical sound. So I would have said like copy and paste that sound and that vocal fold, feel like that feeling into that section of the song. So we got that's what a lot of singers often don't want within their sound. They're like, oh, Zoe, you sound like two different people singing. Monroe's done a really beautiful job of going from that thicker vocal fold chest voice sound into her head voice, and that's obviously the style that she's wanting to go for to make it appear more classical. Lots of thyroid tilt needs to go to that, and we need to allow the vocal folds to thin. Let's just watch that again. There you go. She already said because she went, she'd already swapped on that second note there. Let's just watch it again. Could you hear? Yeah, she's already changed into that head voice quality on that second note because we need to make the adjustment before before the voice forces us to make the adjustment, yeah? We've got this more forward lip position there. Now, there isn't essentially a knock-on effect to the soft palate, which is like the door to the nose, which helps us with resonance, but also with stability for the voice. But helps us with being like a little bit quieter and sort of like in general with singing. So I like to encourage singers as well to just bring those lips just ever so slightly forward. And then like, well, the way that she's doing it doesn't look weird, yeah? Okay, like so many aspects of the song. Oh my goodness me. There are so many strong performances this year. Really, really strong performances. Do you know what? With this Regarde-moi, I kind of like, I would like to see the volume coming from more of like the vocal folds changing, like the vocal folds thickening up rather than it kind of going into so much volume. I'm not sure how this is going to stand the test of time. I mean, look, obviously it's her decision. Every decision an artist makes is totally their decision. I think it could be a little bit more made with maybe tilting the cricoid rather than kind of and having so much volume go into that lower section of the range, because you can kind of hear quite a decent change in the timbre from the lower register to the upper register. When I say that the vibrato is a little bit wide, we have kind of like an allowance of vibrato of about a quarter of a note on either side of the note that we're trying to sing. I'm not going to, vibrato is something I've been working on since I've had vocal surgery. Kind of vibrato is something I've really struggled with actually, so I'm not going to demonstrate right now, but I can demonstrate how like it's too wide, because this is something that I'm trying to work on at the moment because my muscles have kind of been like released and I need to like rope them back in again. And that was only in October, so you know, like it's going to be a little bit of a little bit of time yet before they kind of get fixed or retrained. So we've got we've got this that to me is kind of like a little bit too much pressure going into the vocal folds themselves. We're hearing like this distress in the sound, probably due to the vocal folds being really pressed together at that point, and that then driving of the air is what's creating that vibrato, because we can create vibrato through pressing air but also through the thyroid tilt. And again, that's totally a decision that needs to be the artist's decision themselves. It's just this can often cause people to feel like they're coughing or feel like their voice. Honestly, even just having done that, and like I demonstrate all day every day, I can really feel that in my throat, and I have no water, so it's gonna have to wait. So I do want you to just really watch in terms of the voice is created by air moving through the vocal folds, but that's going to happen anyway. We don't create the sound by pushing the air through the vocal folds. The vocal folds, like the air is going to come out anyway. So think about holding back the breath rather than pressing it out. Okay. There comes a point though in a song, honestly, where you just like, you can't get louder on it. Yeah. So this is what she's desperately trying to do. You can see she's trying to get that excitement into the sound. And like, I've just seen that this is like the very first live performance of this song. So like I can, she's trying to get everybody on her side, which is absolutely fine. The stakes are really fucking high for these singers. Okay. Very, very, very high. We just need to be careful in a situation like this where we're saying, like they're now really leading up. What is it like? We've got like 2 more weeks until Eurovision. Like so much singing, so much press going on. It does need to be like the best performances, but it also needs to be in a way that we're not always giving absolutely everything. Because honestly, talking in like situations like this and all the interviews that these performers are doing are going to be tiring the voice out more than the actual singing. So that's why when we're doing the actual singing, we don't want to like blow a gasket. So I feel like this whole section could be a little bit like not quite as loud. And can you hear that when she's going into this more like operatic sound? We've just got this kind of like over-darkening, like so this making this slightly older. I know I'm going to get so many comments about this, yeah. This is something that I really work with students on, especially like classical singers. I have a degree in classical singing. And like making yourself appear older than you really are doesn't help you in any way, shape or form. And actually it can often cause like a fixing of the larynx in the one position. And we want flexibility with the larynx, that we need that lightness. She's obviously very young. She should sound like a fucking young singer, right? And that's why usually like only older singers like this is sort of like a Wagnerian kind of like, now I'm older, I can create those sorts of sounds, but like she's a lot younger than I am. So we're just wanting to make sure that it's coming from twang. There is a definite lack of twang within the sound in order to create the volume needed for opera. Opera is not just about like woo and kind of creating these sounds. Within the opera voice quality, we actually have quite a lot of narrowing going on within the larynx itself. So like I've talked about before on the channel, but there's like twang that's naturally in my voice. That's what we bring it to. Makes it much, much easier to create the volume when we've got twang on there than trying to push for the volume. And again, please, no shade on her. She's doing a beautiful job. This is just how you can create it, because I see these mistakes being made all the time. And can you hear there as well? Oh God, I feel like I'm really shitty. Yeah, how slow the vibrato is. Yeah, so the slowness of the vibrato is also a signal of this not really being a true vibrato. This is a little bit more of that wobble going on caused by breath pressure and not actually by that thyroid tip. We've got quite a lot of air as well coming through the sound. And again, she's not a classical opera singer, but I want you to know if you are going to sing this song, okay? So when we start to go, oh, you can hear she doesn't go into that thicker vocal vocality when she's going down there, but just watch the amount of volume that you're trying to get out of the sound. It needs to come from twang. On the B flat six there, lovely, beautiful, very high voice, well-trained singer, in order to even make that sound, and especially on national television, she's obviously gone through a lot of training. We've got quite a wide mouth here, which is also going to be lending to that wobble in the vibrato there. Absolutely beautiful. I really, really love that song. I have to say, I need to listen to it a couple of times, obviously, to really get it like a good feeling for the song. But you can see that she's really having fun. Regarde moi, and kind of go, when you're using that thyroid tilt, that's going to help in that section as well. I would probably just, and I know I've said this a couple of times, so Zoe, stop repeating yourself. Twang would have helped her a little bit more just with that volume at the end. And we always need to make sure that we're adjusting the sound so that the end sound, so that our beginning is much, much, much quieter, so that we don't have to quite go and like really push out for those final couple of notes. Although it sounds like it, and a lot of singers, we make it appear like those last notes are incredibly loud. We're always wanting to be holding back. So we're always kind of around that 80 to 90% of our total max volume, because honestly, max volume in a singing voice is going to push the note out of tune. That's not what Monroe's just done here. She's done a beautiful job, perfectly in tune, all that sort of stuff. So these are like really like nitpicky little things to work on if you were working on the song. But it was just, I really need to go and listen to that again, because that song was just, I feel like this was inspired by Ray in a way. And, Ray's music as well is just so intellectual in the way that there's so much going on that it's almost like difficult to enjoy in the very first moment, because you're just like, whoa, okay, I need to go and gather my thoughts about how I feel about all of these classical and other sounds and all these sorts of things. I love that it's a piece of performance art though. So many fantastic dancers, so many people on stage. Look at those strings. Lovely. Can't wait to see what she's doing with that final performance on the Eurovision stage. I tell you, the one thing about having like aligners, because I'm going through I've got an issue with my jaw, and I'm going through some teeth correction at the moment, is that it's really difficult for me sometimes with my articulation. I have to work like quite hard. So that's one thing that we're wanting. I'm like really excited to see what's going to happen on the actual Eurovision stage. So, well done, Monroe. Big sing, very first live performance. Very excited to have seen it here on the channel. If you want to see more of Eurovision, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to see you around here more often, so that we can geek out about vocal technique. Let me know down in the comments who you want me to take a look at next. And just remember, anyone can learn to sing. This was a beautiful performance. We have so much to learn from her artistry, her technique, and everything that's going on. And that's all I want you to take away from today, is that we all have these wonderful voices and we're expressing ourselves in beautiful ways. And that's what I absolutely love here on the channel. Have an awesome rest of the day. Mwah. Happy singing. Ka kite anō.